Hi, all, and welcome to the Found Artist Files, the podcast that delves into real stories that inspire, uplift, and remind you that no matter who you are, your story matters. Every journey, no matter how big or how small, is worth celebrating. Here, we'll explore the powerful narratives of everyday people, artists, creators, and dreamers just like you, sharing the struggles, triumphs, and lessons learned along the way. So keep going, keep creating, and remember, you're crafting your own unique path, one story at a time. Let's dive in. Hey, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. Today with us, we have Logan Miller. Hi, Logan.
Hello, how are you?
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm great here in lovely Los Angeles, in the wake of, political division from Donald Trump and our industry yet again. And so I'm feeling bright and shiny.
Yeah, I mean, obviously on this, what is it, a little gloomy or a little sunny day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Well, would love to start off with learning just a little bit more about who you are and what it is that you do in the industry.
Yeah, well, my name's Logan Miller. I am an actor, writer, and director. I have been acting in the industry since I was 13 years old. Through that, I have done a immense amount of television, independent features, studio features, and now in the past 5 years or so, I've then taken that passion to kind of go behind the camera, writing narrative features, directing them, and helping other filmmakers produce their dreams and content as well.
Awesome. Well, going back to the beginning, since you've kind of been in the industry for a little bit, can you even remember what was one of your first memories that really drew you to being in the space and wanting to realize that you want to act?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was just being so immersed in filmmaking as a child. I mean, my parents were always taking me to Blockbuster and introducing me to new movies. And I mean, I think being truly like captivated and so fearful of the things that were presented to me on screen. Everything always felt completely real. I think that my childhood sensibility was always really immersed in what I was visualizing. And so, my parents took me to a screening of Speed very young. And it was me and my grandparents, and I think I was screaming through the entire film, only to come out into the lobby and then say to my grandfather that I thought that it was the best show that I've ever seen. And so, being completely like almost scared but then captivated at the same time, I think kind of correlated that sensibility to always want to create something like that. And then throughout my childhood, I was gathering all of the neighborhood kids to do remakes of some of my favorite films. We remade Spider-Man. We remade The Matrix. I then made my own rendition of the action franchise Hitman, where my sister, who was also my partner in crime, was gunned down and I had to avenge her death. And the evil supervillain was the boy across the street with a speech impediment. So, it really was cultivating a community, I think, is kind of what really led me to want to be a filmmaker.
Yeah, and it seems like it kind of also perfectly brought you into the directing role that you're going into now, being like, I see talent everywhere that I'm looking. So it's like, you seem like you'd be perfect for this role. You seem like you'd be perfect for this role.
Yes, exactly. And, I'm not just looking at some glitzy stars. I want the actual characters. And so if it is the boy with the speech impediment across the street, then let's go. Come on, he's got something.
Being able to see talent everywhere you look. I love that.
Exactly.
Do you remember booking your first role at 16 and like being able to describe a little bit more about like what that experience truly felt like?
Yeah, well, my first booking for a job was probably like 13 or 14. I booked an audition for Star Wars Transformers, where I was going to be dressed as a Jedi Knight, and I was going to be transforming this lovely Star Wars vehicle into a Jedi. I remember they made me get a manicure for the first time in my life. So, paid for also. Thank you, Hasbro. So my hands were looking hot and spicy, and I was ready to transform that model. And we went into this giant warehouse in downtown Dallas while they were also shooting a Beyblades commercial right next to our set as well. And yeah, I just was completely immersed into it. I never had been more focused on something in my entire life. And I knew that I just really wanted to give it my all. And then from there, I was able to accumulate at least 4 or 5 different Hasbro commercials. I did Super Soakers, The Game of Life, Nerf, all of these amazing games, if you will. And then from there, I then got my first acting job in a feature, which was Ghosts of Girlfriends Past, where I played a young Matthew McConaughey. And I think that casting is probably still the biggest compliment that I could have ever received in my life, to be young Matthew McConaughey.
And it seems like it set you up perfectly with getting, the first manicure and being like, this is really setting the stage for how I'm going to be entering the industry as well.
Yes. A complete, a primped up diva.
What would you say is something that, the industry that no school or no life lesson really could have prepared you for?
I think it's just the resilience and the acceptance of rejection, I think that, I was very lucky in the sense that the acting school that I went to, which was this acting coach named Catherine Sullivan, who still has her acting studio in Dallas, Texas today, kind of taught us early on that there is going to be a lot of rejection, and you are going to have these moments that are lapses in time for work, and to kind of have something outside of just the auditions and just the pursuit of the dream is really important. And I think that we're all humans and we want to, make everyone happy, and rejection itself is a terrible thing. But to understand that the rejection is not about you. It's about, what they are specifically looking for. You're going to give the best that you can in this audition. Your rendition might not be what the filmmaker's mindset is. And that's okay. Because it's not necessarily that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that you ultimately aren't the vision that they are presenting.
Right, and rejection isn't a bad thing. If anything, it's more of it's a learning in everything that you're doing. And so what it does is it also just, that door might be closing, but then it's opening up for the right role to be coming into alignment, and being able to allow what you are auditioning for, what it is that you're truly looking for, to be able to come in. So, that's such a great point, to being rejection is not something that people are truly fond of, or that they look of as a memorable thing, but it's at the same time, it's also can be such a blessing. And, you spoke a little bit about resilience and being able to understand that there's going to be a little bit of time in between some of projects and things like that. So, speaking on sort of your resilience and seeing how you were able to keep going with some of the highs and with some of the lows that you've been able to kind of endure throughout the past few decades that you've been, in this industry and things like that. What would you say was some of the things that you were able to pick up, or some of the things that you were truly pursuing to really help you, one, stay grounded, but also be able to, fulfill your soul and fulfill your journey of wanting to continue in this space that does have rejections and things that are not so, sunshines and unicorns all the time?
Yeah. There's many things that are creative outlets in my life that I pursue that aren't just, they're correlated to the business, but they're not in direct parallels to them. I would say, a lot of my passion for music kind of keeps me grounded, and it's not necessarily the most professional pursuit that I'm looking for music, but more of a therapeutic thing for myself. And sometimes I do like to, throw that music out to the masses, and to be able to have an audience for that. But it's kind of more for self-discovery rather than, a professional pursuit into the music industry. Along with that, it's just, traveling and exploring and trying to go and see as many historic places as possible, and just being active in my community and my friendship circle. I mean, the people that I have accumulated in my life is so valuable and important, because not only is there common ground with so many different people that are in the industry, but during these times of struggle and peril, we can all work together and kind of lift each other up, and help each other along the way if we're struggling, or if we just need a shoulder to cry on, or we just need someone to hang out with in a backyard or go on a hike. Like the community is so important.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that community is one thing that I hope that people don't take for granted, or that they look over, because the one thing about it is that, especially as people are artists and creatives, like, we're all trying to work towards the same goal. We're all trying to achieve our own goals and achieve our own dreams. And I think that being able to be around other creatives and being around other artists, like, it does help us lean into a creative outlet that we may have not really looked into before, and not really opened up, or not really explored before. And it seems like this has also given you some time around the community to be able to look into music a little bit more, being able to explore that, which is exciting. And do you think, first starting off in film and now seeing really a love and a passion for music as well, do you think that you would ever merge the two in work?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, as the creative endeavor of filmmaking, becomes closer and closer to a reality, it's kind of figuring out what control you have of certain projects, so it's like, I would love to kind of do some kind of collaboration where I could have my music in a John Carpenter-y way kind of correlate into some of my filmmaking. But, it's not at the forefront right now. I think getting the movies actually made would definitely be a thing, but I think that further down the line, once I become kind of a face for certain, directorial endeavors and certain kind of, I guess, themes in my filmmaking, perhaps I can dive deeper to kind of have a signature style that would also introduce some scoring elements.
I love that. And speaking of films and speaking of directing, are there any stories that you're truly drawn to being able to tell, or emotions or themes that you're really compelled to explore visually?
I kind of like unsung heroes. I like kind of societies that are in like kind of the dark, or people that don't get a focal point. Maybe like just kind of niche audience kind of stories. I mean, this movie that we're making about the Demolition Derby community, I'd say, is probably not at the forefront of everyone's brain. Some people have even questioned what Demolition Derby is altogether, which I don't think that anybody would know that it's a professional bumper cars, kind of. Like, and this was a society that kind of cultivated together during even Prohibition times, and was kind of adjacent to the NASCAR races of yesteryear. And so, that's kind of a place that I want to explore. We're making a movie about current day paparazzis, which I think would be on the fringes of debaucherous behavior to try to get, some kind of professional pursuit and financial stability in the strangest way possible. I'm now exploring. I just did this film out in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and went to one of the strangest bars that I have ever, been a patron of in my entire life. And because of that, I think I want to, start writing a feature about that bar and about these people and the way that they are. So it's like all of these characters that are kind of on the fringe of society, like, unsung heroes, just, I guess, placements in society that don't really get, like, the forefront, I suppose.
Well, I think that's also the beauty of independent filmmaking, is that you're really being able to craft what it is that brings that emotional alignment, or brings that more of that fulfillment for you. So, I mean, some of the topics that you wrote about, there had to have been a feeling or an emotion that was evoked for you to be like, this is something that needs to be told or something that I need to be able to tell. And that's ultimately a calling, right? You're like, this is my calling to tell this story and to tell it in a way that really will bring the most unknown people together to be able to rejoice in a topic or in a theme or something that they've never really truly even knew was of interest to them. So can you just share a little bit more about, especially those two projects that you have? What was that feeling that you were like, this is the story that I need to tell, or at least I need to be working on right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, there have been, like, even though these two projects are like the things that are actually like popping off, I'm fortunate to say that I've written at least like 6 or 7 different screenplays, and those have been unproduced. But like the general theme within all of them is they kind of lean towards like in the space of where they occupy. I'd say like kind of more of the Midwest. I'm somebody who grew up in the Midwest. I mean, my whole family is from Kansas. I then was born in Colorado, moved to New Mexico, Minnesota, and Texas. My parents still live in Texas, and so I'm very versed in this whole landing strip of the United States. And with that, there comes a lot of characters that aren't at the front and center of our brains. I think that a lot of stories tend to be coastal because that's where the entertainment industry lies, and so therefore there's more stories to tell. But being from kind of a generally normal area of the United States, I want to kind of find the specificities of the eccentricisms, I guess, of the Midwest, and what makes it interesting and what draws people towards it. Because as I get older, I come to find that I love these areas. I think that Kansas City is one of the most interesting, kind of enriched, and newly enriched at the forefront of everybody's brain, because the Chiefs are doing great, and there are these great foundations that some of these big celebrities are creating that are based within that city. But like there's like historically there's all these amazing like buildings and stuff there, and it's kind of untouched. And so I don't know, I like to explore kind of places that are historically sound, and just people that you don't normally think of to be the heroes of a film.
I mean, one of the things that you said that really sort of aligned with me as well is goes back to why NextFoundArtist was even created, was just like not being able to feel a little bit of representation, not myself being able to be seen in mainstream media. And one of the things that I think is so powerful about independent films, and something that you seem to be also including in your structure of being able to create moving forward, is having a little bit more of representation of things that make you feel seen and things that bring up nostalgia for you. So would love to also just learn a little bit more about like, how important do you think it is for, as a creative in general, being able to bring in some of your own personal experiences or your personal feelings or emotions when you are creating, and especially around like nostalgia things that could, especially people who are growing up now in the Midwest or in Kansas City. And you mentioned Kansas City Chiefs. I am a Jets fan, so we'll move past that really quickly. But for anyone who's growing up in the Midwest, being like, that helps me feel a little bit more represented, a little bit more seen, and a little bit more part of a community that is not really truly represented, like you said, in a lot of quote unquote Hollywood movies.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that you want to be able to write something that you've also experienced firsthand. I mean, having kind of a familiarity of like what you're writing about is really important, and then expanding that with kind of the imaginative qualities that you have in your own mind can really make these things sing. I think that movies and just like narratives that all come from a grounded place and a place of experience is completely necessary. Like, I mean, I don't think that I would ever write about, fishermen, because I've never been a commercial fisher myself. I don't know if I would be writing about, like, I don't know, the seedy underbelly of plumbing, although that does sound interesting to me now. So maybe I'll do some further research. But that also is not to say that you can't, like, expand on something that you don't know of. But, like, just making sure that you do the best research possible to, one, kind of represent some of these spaces and make it authentic, but then, like, all it really comes down to is just making the stories interesting too. Like, as long as you're not trying to be historically accurate, then I don't think that there is a place in which that you can't have poetic license to kind of, create and expand on your own world. But I don't think that you're going to become a good writer unless you pursue those experiences. Like, get out in your community. And, like, I think that, a lot of problems with some generations today is the fact that we are kind of isolated. And, COVID was like a big part of that. And so now it's coming back out, being active in the community, being, centered within the space and seeing what other people have to say and, hearing other people's experiences while also, bringing your experience to the table as well. I think furthers collaboration and just ultimately more interesting stories.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also think that, and one of the things that you touched on was being around the community, but it also brings a sense of self-awareness to be able to be in those communities and be aware of what is going on around you. So from your perspective, how has, like, your ability to be self-aware shaped sort of your creative style and how you move forward with any creative projects?
Yeah, well, every time that I have an interesting conversation, interaction, or something, I kind of come back home and I think, oh, well, how can I use that to, expand on my creative endeavors? Just like I said, I was making this movie out in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And while I was kind of immersed within that community, it inspired a story that I want to continue to expand on. And so I'm not necessarily walking into a space going, okay, today is the day that I'm going to get inspired by something. But it's able to lock in on what is happening in front of me and say, okay, well, that could be something interesting that other people would want to see. And, like, as far as self-awareness, I'm extremely self-aware that I am a magnet that brings in, like, odd behavior. Like, anytime that I'm anywhere, like, my girlfriend and I will be at the airport, and the strangest man will come up to me and, ask me for some kind of business pursuit or whatever. Like, it just, like, it happens, like, frequently, and I don't know why, but I am a magnet towards it. So if I have this opportunity, I might as well take advantage of it. And it's to, like, kind of be a sponge for these characters and then eventually bring them out into the world and give everybody a taste of my really egocentric and very odd day-to-day interactions.
Well, I mean, I think it's the aura that you're like, yes, everyone come to me, like, what character do I want to play? The world is also an oyster, and it's also a playground, right? Being able to get inspiration from around everyone that you are interacting with, and, why not having someone come up to you in an airport and being able to, like, I'm going to be your next character that you're going to play.
Right, yes.
Being in the indie space and also being around so many different, creative opportunities, one of the things that have really also grown in the space is wearing multiple hats, right? I mean, I think it's not like, oh, were you a writer, are you a director? It's like, I'm the writer, director, and producer. So someone who started in acting and is now, switching on over, or is also moving into their directorial debut and into directing a little bit more. What would you say were some of the things that you learned from an actor that you do want to take into your directing that will either, or just some of your experiences that have kind of also helped you, or do you think would, like, hinder your ability to be the director that people need as an actor?
Yeah, I mean, as an actor, writer, director, hand model, OnlyFans model, I think that it's hard to be spread so thin with all of these different pursuits, but just making sure that you, stay focused on the prize. I think that initially, as I was making movies early on, kind of like my first short films and whatnot, as an actor, I always said, oh, well, if I'm going to create something, then I want to also be able to be the lead. But upon further investigation, you can come to find that, like, people are one position on a job for a reason. And, there are some, like, Ben Stiller and many others that can wear all of those different hats. But in order to be able to be at the front of the camera, be the director, be the writer and the producer, you need to have, like, a really, really solid structure of people around you that can kind of like expand in your brain. And I think that what I have become more aware of, especially in the early phases of me bringing my new content out into the world, I want to kind of not necessarily take a step back from acting, because I'm always going to continue to do that, but like maybe take a step back from acting in some of my directorial features, because there comes a time where you want to really be able to focus on the job at hand. And if I am, trying to portray this character in the best way possible, while also, making sure that the shots align with what we shot 2 days ago, and like if this is cohesively working as a narrative, then like it might hinder my performance as an actor and a director. Like, I want to be able to now kind of, I guess, just meditate on what's in front of me. And so, I now have taken a step back from wanting to act in the things that I direct and then just act in other people's stuff right now.
But I think it also is helping you grow and challenge yourself into a new form of creativity that you have not really, it's like a muscle, right? Like the more and more that you use it, like the stronger that it gets. So this is an opportunity for you to be like, I already feel confident with acting. This is something that I want to test, and I want to put all of my strength into it and be able to really make it as strong as possible. So that's also exciting for you to be like, this is my opportunity to try out this muscle that I really want to see, and I know that I can really excel at if I try and just put all of my effort into that and all of my energy into that.
Yes, exactly.
And coming from, acting into directing, like obviously you've been on sets and you've had other people direct you. Are there any directors in particular, or just like styles of directing that have really come, that you've come across that you're like, this is something that really aligns with me, that I think would be such a wonderful theme or emotion to really bring into my directing debut?
Yeah, well, I've gotten the chance to work with so many amazing directors, and, some of the ones to kind of mention, I'd say, or the ones that kind of stood out to me the most was, I loved working with Kelly Reichardt. She had a very poised and kind of relaxed sensibility on what the energy was like on set. There was only like 2 to 3 takes that were happening at a time, which was, very refreshing. And I think it was like we are going to be able to get whatever happens naturally here. And so I really appreciated that, in the sense of, kind of being able to give the best performance that you want initially, and not really, like, I guess, hammering it down to be something specific. It's getting the people that you have cast in this film to portray what we already know is going to ultimately be good, because, these actors have put in the work. The director, Chris Landon, I loved working with. I had such a great time with him. And, there was a lighthearted behavior that was on set that was also open to a lot of improv and collaboration. I mean, I'm very drawn towards things comedically, and I think his sensibility is also, like, inherently comedic, even though it kind of goes into the horror realm as well. Just seeing how so many different people communicate with their DPs and communicate with most of the cast and crew, And it's just making sure that everybody feels centered and safe. You know, as a director, you have to be the captain of the ship. And even if aren't necessarily confident in what's happening during that day, because I don't think that we're always 100% confident with anything that we do all of the time, but it's giving that energy off to everybody else in order to make the product the best it can be. So it's kind of not, I wouldn't say sacrificing your own anxieties, but at least like kind of throwing them to the wayside to kind of get the initial job done in the best way possible. And, you know, I mean, if you got to go scream into your pillow later at the end of the night, then do it, but just don't do it on set.
Right. And I think to remember also that we're all humans, right? Like we're showing up the best that we can, but also knowing that you've built this team around you for a reason. You know, that's the quote, it's showbiz. Things happen. Not everything is going to go as planned, but
Exactly.
to trust the people that you have around you to be able to ultimately achieve what it is at the end goal and making sure that everybody's in alignment with what it is that you're looking to achieve. Love that you're also looking to be able to bring on people where you want to make it more of a collaborative effort for every single person. And yeah, and so how has sort of the process and the approach to, you know, performances evolved throughout the years for you, and how are you looking to take those experiences and be able to include them in some of your films?
Yeah, you know, I mean, as the acting process has definitely evolved in ways in the sense that I think, like, I don't want to say it's become more simple because it hasn't, but it's become a little bit easier for me with the 10,000 hours that I've put in. You know, I'm able to kind of jump into something a little bit quicker, or say memorize something quicker because, you know, I've been looking at scripts since I was 12 years old. And so it's one, putting in that work to then make work easier down the line. I'm learning that with like working out my body too. It's like, okay, well, you know, you're not going to be able to pull like 110 pounds doing a barbell session if you don't do it 2 or 3 times a week, you know. And the same rules apply for creative endeavors, like, and so it's always like, I mean, every day I'm on calls about my creative pursuits, like every other day I'm auditioning for something, or, you know, doing some research on certain films that I might be inspired by to then help my creative pursuits. It's like, it's just like continuing to put in the work that will ultimately make every product that you're creating better and better. And so that's kind of like the mentality that I've put into the work, that one makes it easier and makes it more detailed, and then ultimately more fun because you're thinking less about I've got to memorize these lines, I've got to, you know specifically what kind of lenses these are and stuff. It's like, well, once I have the predetermined knowledge, then I'm able to like utilize that as just kind of second nature. And I've already flexed that muscle, and so therefore I can lift the weight of this job.
And it seems it's also a safe space, right? Is being able to create that safe collaborative space for people to show up as their authentic self, for you to be able to be like, let me absorb that, let me notice that, let me see that. And can you also remember from some of your experiences on set, was there anything that you were able to experience or for you to absorb that you're like, hey, this is going to change the way that I pursue my craft or my creativity?
Yeah, well, you know, I think that anytime that I've ever created something and I've like cast somebody in a job, I have always wanted them, you know, for who they are. I think that coming into acting in like the different mindset, I always am like, oh, well, what I present to the table initially isn't going to be good enough. Like, I am going to have to like kind of lean into this character more, or I don't know if I can do that. But then remembering to like if I was casting somebody in something, I would want to get them for their like authentic self. And yes, of course, like some characters need more nuance and specificity as far as like really immersing yourself in somebody that's not you. But like ultimately, like we're casting somebody because they are able to invoke this. And so, you know, being able to project that energy onto myself and knowing that they have like put me in this position because I was the right person for the job, that like puts less of a I guess tension onto, am I going to do a good job on this set? And then like throughout the years, it's just about like communicating more. You know, I think that a lot of early on, like actors think that, oh, well, my 2 cents has no value because this is somebody else's vision. You know, I am kind of playing a portion of this person's vision, and I essentially, you know, don't really have anything to add other than like my presence. But like your creativity and your choices are just as valuable as the directors, the producers, and everything. And I mean, you know, you don't want to overbear everybody with your creative ideas, but at least like being comfortable in knowing that this is a collaboration and you can voice your opinion, and if something feels more right than the other, you know, let's like set up that for debate, and maybe there's something that's working that maybe the director has thought of that doesn't work for you or whatnot. It's all about like this direct collaboration and communication and being able to have the confidence to voice that opinion.
Yeah, and talking about, you know, human collaboration and also being able to show up authentically, especially in the world that we live in right now that is sort of run by tech companies, is really run by algorithms. Do you think that there's still room in the industry for artistry over algorithms?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I don't think that an algorithm is going to help any kind of creative endeavor other than, like, how to market the film itself. You know, ultimately, like, there are these big studio films that will need kind of a larger workforce as far as CGI, and you know, maybe there is a world of collaborative AI that then like lessens the blow as far as a budget stance goes, but at least there's an arsenal of artists that are still actively working on this thing that I think can be this kind of middle ground of being able to collaborate with tech companies. But I truly do feel like the tech industry is the studio heads without any creative mindset added to the conversation. You know, I think that, you know, we call it the tech company because they are working in like technical developments, but they're not working in an industry that is inherently artistic. Artistic endeavors are made off the dome with like a humanistic quality, and you're never going to get that with just like an algorithm telling you what is going to be right for a certain demographic. I mean, it might be good, again, like I said, in the marketing of it, and what ways can we get people to come back to theaters, you know, at what time do we need to get better projections because, you know, the technology is better these days. Those things can inherently help, and also in scheduling and making budgets quicker and better, but like the creativity and what's been like presented in front of the camera is always going to be artistic and can never be recreated with just a AI algorithm or anything else in that matter.
Say it louder for the people in the back, because we absolutely agree with that. What do you think needs to shift in the industry in order for intentional storytelling and more of creative pursuits to really come back?
I guess it's not being so reliant on. I really think it's not being reliant on intellectual property these days. I mean, I think that, you know, again, people are trying to make money, and this is a business, and so I understand in the sense that, like, yes, we need to make these big things, but we don't need to necessarily make it because people are familiar with it in the past. Like, you know, I think a perfect example of that right now is Ryan Coogler's Sinners, and how that inherently was a original screenplay and an original idea. I mean, I think it obviously derives from other movies of the past, and nothing is new under the sun. But inherently, there was no book that was written about Sinners. There was no video game that was written about Sinners. It was just a great popcorn flick, and we need more of that, and we need to be not so reliant on the fact that we can only sell things because there was an intellectual property in the past.
I think you touched on something that really was, and one, love Sinners. I think that Sinners does such an amazing job at being original, but also bringing people together. And one of the things that, correlated to that, and one of the things that you just touched on about not having an IP, is that there was nostalgia in the script and in the storytelling. And that really allowed people to feel that connection. And look what happened. They showed up. People are showing up for Sinners. And so that's something that is, we are definitely seeing that shift that people are looking for, that people are craving for. And as you are starting to shift more into your directing and more into the writing as well, what kind of impact do you hope that your art has?
Well, I hope it one, inspires people, and it makes people kind of want to research some of these nicher worlds, and that might not be at the forefront of what's currently happening in today's society. And yeah, I would just I want it to inspire others to kind of look under the rug and see what's happening down there. And it may be creepy and weird and odd, and I would then encourage you to vacuum if that was the case. But nonetheless, suck it up so you can then regurgitate it later. And don't be afraid to tell something that might feel a little odd or incohesive. It doesn't have to be set to a certain structure. I mean, there's always a better way to make a screenplay. But most importantly, it's finding something that is original to you and what you are passionate about, and not what others are passionate about. I'd say, don't be so inspired by what others are doing, and try to bring your voice out to get other people interested in what you might be interested, even though it might be different and unique.
Yeah, that's I love what you just said, and that also really aligns with something that our team actually talked about earlier today. Is that so we say that we're a platform for artists by artists, and since we all are in the industry in some sense of whether we're writers or whether we're actors, and so one of our team members is actually in the midst of writing right now, and he was saying that he pulls an inspiration from others, but we were all talking about it, and we were like, it's important to have inspiration from others, but it's also to remember that you should not force yourself to be like others, and to focus on what it is that you want to tell, because it's also if you're focusing on what it is that you want to tell, and it's never been told before, and that's okay. That's a part of vulnerability and a part of being fearful enough to, but it's also believing in yourself to tell that story that you really want to tell and that you really want to share. It could also change someone else's life, right? It could also allow them to be like, I needed to see that. I needed to be impacted by that. And I think that is the beauty of art, and that's the beauty of film, right? Is that it does heal and does bring communities together.
Right. Yeah, and then also, in the sense of, while I think it's 100% important to always be pursuing your creative endeavors, but don't be beholden by just only saying, I can do nothing but my screenplay that hasn't gotten any headwind in the past 5 years or something. I think that the one thing that people need to learn, and I even needed to learn this myself, is the fact that sometimes to get your foot in the door, you need to maybe do things that aren't inherently the forefront idea of what is maybe creatively fulfilling to you. So you're gonna have to kind of essentially do some projects that may not be your first choice, in order to then get the power to then be able to make something later. I mean, don't jump off the bridge if everybody's doing it, but I guess if that bridge is going to give you $10 million afterwards, do it so then you can swim down and then make your thing later down the road. I felt like that was like one of the biggest lessons that I have learned is like you can't just do crazy indie films that no one will see, because you need to like kind of accumulate the audience to then get them on board to kind of go down your path. I mean, I think that it was even David Lynch who was doing PlayStation commercials, and so he could, one, make money and maybe like expand his audience a little bit, like here and there. But it's not always going to be 100% creatively fulfilling, but it is much more fulfilling to be able to do the work and try to make it the most creative that you can, rather than, being pigeonholed into, I've got this amazing work, but I'm no longer able to get anybody on board because I haven't been able to show anybody what my value is yet. So just being open to other ideas, and like, even, silly things. If you got to do an industrial commercial as a director, or you got to do somebody's music video that may not be, you're a rap lover, but it's a country music video. Like, just like expand your reaches and just don't be beholden to what only you like, I suppose.
Yeah, and I feel like luckily and gratefully are in a position right now where you can explore some of the things that you truly are passionate about, and but like you said, you had to start maybe by doing something that wasn't really what it is that you are looking to do right now, or creative pursuits that you're looking to, do right now. So looking back at your time, like, and your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self, or to even anyone that is starting out and trying to get into the industry now?
I'd say I almost said say yes to everything, but I was like, well, but have your perimeters. Obviously.
And model only, and then.
But I guess like, yeah, that would kind of be the advice, is like, just because you think that, this Disney Channel original movie is dumb doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Like I started out in the Disney world a lot, and then after that show ended, I kind of was asked to do a couple of these opportunities that I was like, no, I can't do that, because, that's going to pigeonhole me into being just like known as a Disney star, and that's it. What I wasn't aware of is that the industry was ever changing and always expanding, and how, somebody like Zendaya can go from Shake It Up to Euphoria just because audiences understand that this is the foot in the door. This is the space that you had to start out in. I think when I first started in the industry, it was more, there was a time where you probably were going to get typecast in something, and I think that my like entry into the business kind of was at the tail end of what was still happening, and so I was inherently worried that if I did too many Disney things, that I would be just solely known as a Disney actor. But if these opportunities were kind of further my reach into people viewing my work, then I maybe would have taken them. But again, like, everything happens for a reason, and I guess any advice would just be like, it's almost like relax and just know that something is going to come, and it's patience and resilience. And as long as persistence is still there, because I think persistence is a big proponent in keeping up in this industry and staying relevant, always be actively pursuing something. If you're going to sit by the phone and just wait, then it's not going to really happen for you. If you can't get your content out there, then, go make some sketches with some friends, or make some fun things that, make you feel passionate. Take an acting class, just get yourself out there and hike. Like, just do something active, because as soon as you're inactive, then it just lies to nothing but being lazy, I guess.
Yeah, and to be open to opportunities, to be open to continuing to learn is really what I'm gathering from what you just said. But also, remember to have fun and to remember to enjoy it and to be in the present moment and to be like, yes, again, we're all human. Things are not going to go as we plan, but to also release some of that control and just trust
Yeah.
that what is meant to come. But I mean, you also really much so nailed on the head is like continue to pursue, continue to go after it, because especially with this industry, especially with what's going on right now, like it's a roller coaster, but to not give up and to continue doing it. And I think that you've had such a wonderful career and to be able to show that like if you love it and you want this, like it is possible to stick it out and to have such a long and fruitful and wonderful career. And so, going back to, and I know you touched a little bit more about your childhood in the beginning, but going back to the real start of it all, can you just share like a pivotal moment from your childhood that really influenced your path?
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, it was going to this acting studio in Texas where I then met like one of my like best friend to this day, Thomas Mann, who is also still working in the industry and doing great work. And like, I'm very thankful for my acting coach, Catherine Sullivan, who kind of brought us into a sphere of acting for film. I mean, that inherently was what the classes were about, and it was about pursuing the entertainment industry. I think a lot of like acting schools tend to kind of think about like the methodology of things and whatnot, but this school really taught like the technicalities of what it is to be a film actor and the specificities and the nuances of being a film actor. And so, getting immersed in that community is what was the cornerstone that became the rest of my career. If I hadn't gone to that school, I wouldn't have learned all of these beneficial things that eventually like kind of led to my forever pursuit of this career. And so, that was really pivotal. And then it was getting these opportunities with these people that were so open and nice. I think that a lot of people have the common misconception that this industry is very cutthroat, and which it is. But what I experienced at the beginning of my career, at least, was a lot of people that were open, loving, and, tried to create a safe community for somebody who was 16, 17 years old. And, that's not to say that there were so many other avenues that could have turned out bad for me. And I think that there's a couple that I have seen before where I'm like, well, I'm glad that job didn't happen, because that would have put me into kind of an unhealthy environment. But I was very lucky to be in this very loving and open environment. I mean, like, my parents were friends with all of the cast members and crew members of like the Disney show that I was working on. And like, I was thankful that my parents were even supportive of my career and, willing to take that, next step and bring me out to Los Angeles. And so, I mean, it's these communities that I was very lucky to be a part of, but grateful that it wasn't dealt with in a cynical or harsh way, and it was it was a positive experience that then would led me to want to pursue this to the ends of the earth, I suppose.
Yeah, and we are so excited for everything else that you are going to create and still have yet to create, so we will definitely be on the lookout for that. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being you. And to everyone at home, always be you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks for listening. Did you enjoy this week's journey? So do we. And don't forget to give us a follow on all of our other socials at NextFoundArtist. Also, head on over to our website, nextfoundartist.com, to find and watch independent films from your next favorite artist.